Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. Today we're diving into something that literally holds almost all of us back at some point. The core premise we're tackling here is simple, but honestly, it's pretty profound. We have the relationship between action and confidence completely backwards. Seriously, you do not need confidence to start. In fact, starting is exactly how you create that confidence in the first place. So let me ask you, are you stuck in a holding pattern right now? Just kind of waiting for this magical feeling of readiness to wash over you before you launch that new project, start a business, or dive into a creative endeavor? Well, if you are absolutely not alone. But the source material we're exploring today makes a massive point. Waiting for fear to just magically disappear? It's a total trap. That feeling of complete certainty you're looking for? Well, it might never actually arrive on its own. It needs a trigger. And that trigger is action.
Okay, let's jump straight into section 1, your walking bank.
Right, so before we even take that very first step, we really need to fundamentally change how we view the resources we already have. And this starts with what the author calls the walking bank theory. It's defined as the belief that you already carry deposited talent, knowledge, experience, and capacity right there inside you. You literally are a walking bank. Just because you feel a bit uncertain about a new venture doesn't mean you're empty. You just haven't made a withdrawal yet. Confidence doesn't just pop out of thin air. It grows when you actively start withdrawing from and investing all those incredible assets you already carry. You know, we so often completely overlook these existing deposits. Think about it. Your education, your natural abilities, past experiences, and yeah, even your failures in relationships. Think about the hard lessons you've learned, your creativity, your resilience. Some of these things you recognize immediately, right? But others, they're totally hidden until life demands you make a withdrawal. The raw materials for your next chapter, your next big move, they're already sitting right inside you. You really don't need to go out and become a completely different person just to start. You just have to tap into the wealth that's already there. Moving right along to section 2, surviving the first step. So how do we actually make a move when that voice of fear is just incredibly loud and the path forward looks, well, totally unclear? The author uses their own experience of building a live cognitive competition platform called Brain Sniper to brilliantly illustrate this. See, Brain Sniper didn't just drop out of the sky as a massive, completed ecosystem on day one. No way. It was a sequence of individual, bite-sized decisions. First, there was Daily Sniper, then came the live arena, then player identities, and eventually championship events. The author had to just trust that they could learn what they didn't know yet and literally just solve the next file, test the next feature. A massive vision will completely paralyze you if you try to carry its full weight all at once. It's actually just a sequence of small, manageable steps. Look at this quote from the text. Make it small enough that fear cannot convince you it is impossible, but meaningful enough that you can point to it and say, I have begun. I just love that. Your very first step does not need to impress anyone. It doesn't need to go viral. It literally just needs to exist as proof of action. Giving your vision a real place to live outside of your own imagination, that is exactly how you survive that terrifying first step. And that brings us to a really crucial realization about our emotions. Your mood deserves acknowledgement, sure, but it does not always deserve authority. Let's be real, you are not going to wake up feeling equally inspired, powerful, or completely certain every single day. That's just being human. If every single commitment you made required the enthusiastic approval of your current mood, honestly, very little would survive long enough to become meaningful. You have to make a clear, firm decision to act before your mood even gets a vote. That decision is what gives you stable ground to stand on when motivation inevitably fades. All right, here's section 3, navigating visibility and failure. Okay, so once you actually start, you're going to be seen, and that brings us to the wonderfully messy reality of building publicly. We really need to completely redefine this word embarrassment. We usually treat it like a disqualifying event, right? Like a blaring sign that we should just quit. But listen to this. Embarrassment is sometimes literally the tuition you pay for growth. It purchases experience you simply could not acquire while you were hiding. Building publicly means people might witness your unfinished version. They might see a technical difficulty or a stumble. But guess what? You are being seen in motion. You cannot make appearing perfect more important than becoming capable. And when things inevitably go wrong, a massive mindset shift is required. There is a huge difference between saying, that did not work, and saying, I do not work. A failed attempt just means the attempt failed. It absolutely does not mean you are a failure. When code breaks or a new idea doesn't get the response you expected, that is just information. It's data. If your identity rises and falls with every single metric or malfunction, you completely surrender your ability to experiment. You've got to be able to study the result, keep the lesson, change your method, and, most importantly, preserve the person.
Now, as you keep taking action, something pretty incredible happens. Consider these seemingly totally disconnected past experiences from the author's own life: chemistry, environmental studies, law, writing, speaking, business strategy, live streaming. On their own, they seem totally random, right? Like a giant puzzle with mismatched pieces. But when they began building their platform, these pieces actually started meeting each other. The scientist tested, the lawyer structured, the speaker communicated. The actual work introduced them to a version of themselves that sitting around thinking alone could never have revealed. Action introduces you to the next version of yourself. Your next identity might already exist in pieces scattered throughout your life, just waiting for the work to pull them all together.
Which leads us to Section 4, documenting your evolution. 547. That is the exact number of consecutive days the author spent live streaming. Now, let me tell you, that did not come from daily perfect motivation. Not a chance. It came from honoring a commitment through exhaustion, frustration, and a whole lot of uncertainty. Because when you are deep in the thick of a new project, your tired mind becomes a terribly unreliable narrator. But when you say you will show up and build, and you actually follow through, that strengthens your relationship with yourself. Self-confidence is deeply, deeply connected to self-trust. Keeping promises to yourself, even the really small ones, repairs that trust and deposits it directly into your walking bank.
And this all builds into what we can call the confidence loop. Check this out. Step 1, take action. Step 2, that action gives you evidence. Step 3, that evidence builds self-trust. And finally, step 4, that self-trust strengthens confidence, which helps you take the next action. Do you notice what's missing at the beginning? You don't start at step 4. You have to start at step 1. Taking action is exactly how you create the hard evidence that generates true confidence.
Because our minds are so incredibly quick to forget our own progress, you absolutely must keep the receipts. Seriously, when you write a first draft, save it. When you get your first sale, record it somewhere. Get your first good review or a message saying your work mattered, screenshot that immediately. Documenting your milestones prevents a really bad day from erasing months of hard building. Progress is just so much harder for your own doubts to deny when you've given it a literal physical record. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, redefining courage. We so often imagine courage as this big, dramatic, cinematic moment, right? Like you're standing before a cheering audience. But in reality, real courage is opening your laptop again after yesterday's failure. It's having the guts to ask someone to pay for what you created. It's using a title you earned, entering a room where nobody knows you, or hitting post on your work way before the applause is guaranteed. These decisions, they don't look historic while you're making them. They are just ordinary actions performed while doubt is still sitting right there in the room with you. So please, don't overlook your own courage just because it didn't arrive with an epic movie soundtrack. Ultimately, if you take nothing else away from this, remember this: confidence can catch up with you while you move. You absolutely do not need to become an entirely different, fearless person before you begin. You only need to make your very first step small enough to survive. Trust that the confidence will meet you on the road after you have already started walking. So I want to leave you with one final, hopefully provocative question. What withdrawal will you make from your walking bank today? You already carry the abilities, the lessons, the resilience. The deposits have already been made. The only thing left for you to do is to take action and make that withdrawal. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Remember, don't wait for confidence. Just start. I'll catch you next time.